Hi, welcome everyone. We are now on our new topic called research statement of the problem. So research of the statement of the problem is the basic meat of your research concept paper or proposal. So now crafting your research statement of the problem requires tremendous effort. Why? Because after synthesizing the literature and examining how what are the weaknesses, strength, the relationship of our paper or plan study to the various literatures, journals, and publications. Sorry for that. You may wonder, how could I go with this problem? So how could I how could I proceed with the research title, or how should I proceed with the topic? Because the topic might be big, or it might be vague, or it might be complex. Now, you can for a topic like, for example, the topic about effectiveness, you may create 1,000 topics or questions about effectiveness. And of course, given our finite number of resources and time and energy, we cannot answer it all. So we just have to identify our effort or our research inquiry into critical areas of our research interests. So now by identifying this, we'll be able to achieve answer to our research query. So that is the main purpose why we have statement of the problem, to state and boldly declare that as a researcher, I would like to study a particular aspect of this topic. So that is our declaration, because we cannot we can cover everything. And of course, we just have to cover the most critical part of our research topic. If let's say ecotourism, it's a very broad topic. We cannot cover all the variables for ecotourism. And if we do that, that will be a tremendous amount of money, time, and effort that may require to us. Now, as a researcher, we don't have that luxury. So we just have to concentrate again to the most critical variable and the most doable for us as a researcher. So now, crafting a statement of the problem is very crucial, because the statement of the problem is will indicate initially the success or the failure of your research study. Now, without further ado, let's go with the outline of this presentation. Okay. So the outline will be as follows. So we're going to cover the following topics. So what is the relationship of your statement of the problem with the RLL and framework, and the format that is being required to you, and as well as the impact of the methodology, particularly the hypothesis and the inferential statistical treatment of data. Now, right now, we are now in the between the literature review and methodology. For some researcher, they have identified SOP as part of the methodology, because that is how they approach things. But for us, we will going to take the same step. But unlike the other research class, I plan to do it in a research concept style. And then after your research concept paper was approved by the panel, you're going to create your instrumentation or checklist, whether you're going to adapt or craft your own. It's depend upon your advisor, upon yourself. Now, after that, you're going to get the data gathering stage. And after that, you're going to work with the whole paper, chapter 1, 2, 3, 4, 5. Now, of course, the advantage of that is that you're writing it simultaneously. So there is no need for you to update the whole context, unlike the traditional way of doing the chapter 1, 2, 3, and then research instrument, which of course never been updated when you do the chapter 4 and 5, because the concentration is now focused on chapter 4. Now, unlike this new style, it's much more easier, because you know what you're doing. You have identified your gap. The background is there. You're just going to load your background. And then the methodology is there. So just going to expand your methodology. Now, what is great for this one is because you can now identify your limitation and the limitation. You can now simply put, what is the limitation of your findings to your chapter 1? So from chapter 4, since you're going to report the limitation, you now can be able to update the limitation of your chapter 1. Basically, now if you ask me, bakit po ba may chapter 1, 2, 3, 4, 5 na ganitong format? The format there is the reader's format. So meaning to say the flow of the paper is arranged in that particular way of knowledge. However, if we're doing the writer's format, it should be the chapter 2, which is the literature, and then chapter 3, and then chapter 1, and then chapter 4 and 5. That's the arrangement. However, since we don't have time to do that individually, we're going to proceed it as a whole paper. So since you have the materials already, and then what is advantages for this approach is that you can also easily do the comparison, because in your chapter 4, that is data presentation, you can also bring out the chapter 2 literature and then contrast similar and then find the similarities of the research from your research. So for example, in your literature review, you find all of the the answers or the hypotheses are positive, while your findings reveal that it's not positive, it's negative or inverse pa nga. So that, of course, that will be a great area of further research or further study. So that is how we're going to do it, no? So it's not just a patchwork, but it's a synchronized and harmonious paper concept, which is you're going to report whatever findings in your chapter 1, and then it will be reflected, your literature will be reflected in chapter 4 and as well in chapter 5. Okay. So how do we do the SOP? So of course, since you have your RRL, which is the most important, as a researcher personally, RRL is the most important because without a good selection of RRL, you cannot be able to identify gap. So there's no reason for your paper to exist. You don't know what is your construct, meaning to say, what are the variables that I'm going to use in my paper and how could I measure them? So that's the two most important question. What is the variable that I'm going to use and how I would measure that? For example, most common variables that are being presented to me is effectiveness. So effectiveness is a variable which is topic sensitive, meaning to say how effective is the destination is different from how effective is the company or how effective I am as a teacher or as a faculty member. Now again, even though we are both teaching, let's say you're teaching in elementary basic education, I'm teaching in a higher education, our effectiveness is also different. Our concept of effectiveness might vary tremendously different. For example, you as an educator, your effectiveness is being measured by the compliance with DepEd standards, memorandum, etc. So you don't need to ask your high school student whether they are happy or they're satisfied to you, because it is presumed that high school students and elementary students have no the concept of talaburasa, meaning say they are blanks. So they are not capable of assessing whether they are learning or they are benefiting from the learning process. Now, education in basic education is mere compliance to some standards set by the government or by the school. So that's how the conceptual framework or that's the construct that we're going to use for education in basic education. However, that is different from the higher education that students can evaluate faculty members, and the evaluation is not purely based on, let's say, subject matter, because if we're going to evaluate subject matter itself, we as your professor would be excellent because most of us are really expert in that our field. However, another variable that is also present according to different theories is the communication part. How good we are in translating our knowledge to a credible communication that might or that easily digestible by our students. Another one is our management, classroom management. Another one would be our leadership role to our students. So these are some of the criteria. Aside from the universities set standards and of course the intervention by our supervisors, no? So that will be a basis for our effectiveness as a faculty member. So that is a construct. So your RLL provides you how would you measure effectiveness, what is store satisfaction, what is destination marketing, how good is the promotion, and those things, because these are all available in the literature. Now, instruments, it's a good thing that you're going to use instruments that are already validated by other researcher. So one of the practice here in psychology or the social behavioral science in psychology is that their instrument is well established, well founded. Example, for IQ tests, you don't need to construct your own survey or checklist or your own instrument in measuring IQ, because you're just going to use the approved measurement standard or the approved IQ test booklet recognized by the APA. So that's how good is the instrument. So basically, any psychological research that is delving with the IQ, they have to use that standardized instrument. Another one is the Mayer-Bridge Personality Test, the INFT, the mga ganun, no? So this is a standard instrument that is already proven. And of course, so in medical field naman, since blood pressure is a measurement because it's an instrument that we use, it's a standard. And of course, you have your way of knowing whether you are of high blood or dangerous level of intensive blood pressure or in dangerous level of low blood pressure because it's already established. Now for tourism, we do have our own instruments that you can adopt, but it depends on the context and your study. For example, is Doxy Index. Okay, Doxy Irritation Index. That's a well-established standard. The resort life cycle or the LPC or life process cycle. Okay. We have also the theory of stakeholder analysis. We have also models like in different models, for example, we can also adopt ServQual by Parasuman. These are measurement for service quality. So these are good models that you can adopt in your paper as well as the instrument that are being used. Next, after researching, you should be able to identify whether the route for you or the literature for you convince you, and then you will adapt. So you will take the theoretical route, or whether the literature is lacking and you find that your concept is better expressed by your own, you might take the conceptual route. Okay. So based on that, you will now draw your research paradigm, and that will form your SOP. So now let's work on the SOP using a sample research. So for more questions about research framework, you might visit our recording uploaded here. Now, let's use the paper of examining a model of entrepreneurial success factor among undergraduate students, a quantitative study by Kehoe Keoy and Party. So for their research paradigm, which is a graphical illustration of their how they will approach the title or the problem or the study, it's basically the roadmap. So they will have the following variable. So the variable is very simple. So let me just remove my. Okay. So they have three variables: entrepreneurial enablement, entrepreneurial education mechanism, and entrepreneurial perceived outcome. So they believe that the entrepreneurial enablement will enhance or benefit or have an effect towards the entrepreneurial perceived outcome, as well as the entrepreneurial educational mechanism that will have effects to the PEO. So basically, that's the belief here. So you have two independent variable and one dependent variable. Okay. So of course, the hypothesis is not surprisingly indicated here. We have H1, H2. So we will have two hypotheses. So the hypothesis is stated in a marketing or a positive or alternative form. So technology enablement will positive impact perceived entrepreneurial outcome. And entrepreneurial education mechanism will positively influence perceived entrepreneurial outcome. So again, but in our case, it is much more advisable to use the null hypothesis because it's much more easier to test that. However, giving credence to the positive, the perhaps the author of this paper might have read the literature, and seems to be that the literature have already established the positive relationship between this variable, so that he will so that is it so that the researcher of this study has warranted that the paper should take a more positive assertion in their hypothesis because of the findings of other researchers. So it might be a possibility because that is in credence to their review of literature. Now, for our case, it's much more better to take the null hypothesis for the simple reason that it's much more easier to prove and disprove rather than the alternative hypothesis, which is it will take a certain confirmatory test, okay, and statistical treatment. Next. Now let's examine how the problem was coined. So the main problem for this paper is basically how does the two variable impacts the entrepreneurial perceived outcome. However, they have to state that into a research problem. So the research problem is basically what is the direct and indirect impact of technology enablement to boost higher education student perceived entrepreneurial outcome. So basically, the main problem talks about how does the TE affects either directly or indirectly the entrepreneurial perceived outcome. Now, of course, that will be creating two problems that which are based on the hypothesis. So the first problem is based on the hypothesis is that what are the effects of the variable education mechanism and technological enablement on higher educational student perceived educational success? So what's this effect to this and the effect of that? So that is the first question. Okay. So that's the first question. Next. What is the impact of technological enablement more critical than the conventional educational system? So basically, it's a comparative. So they will be comparing this one to another conventional educational system. However, the model does not present a variable for educational model. I think that is one of the the weaknesses of this paper because there is not clear variable being described in their research paradigm, so that may be contextual. Now, what is good here is that the question number 2 covers both hypotheses. Okay, so perhaps question number 2 is basically an assessment of the perceived entrepreneurial outcome with intervention from technological enabled versus non-intervention, meaning to say basically there's no technological enablement. So they were going to compare whether there is an impact or substantial difference between those program that has a technological enablement versus the no or no technological enablement programs. So which is basically handled by conventional education system. So they will now try to look at the differences, whether there is a uh, more positive impact being brought by this technological enablement. So that's how they coin the problem. So for our main problem, it's basically our research title. And then it will be broke down with two or four sub-problems. 2 or 4 sub-problems only. Okay? 4 is already many for you. But 2 or 3, that's also good. Now, the standard or the average will be a good number would be 3 because it's not too many, it's not too short. Because if your research problem is too short, you have to make sure that it's really complex. Because if your panel asks you for 2 questions, why 2? Would that 2 questions sufficiently answers the main question? You have to make sure of that, because most likely if it's the 2 question, it might not be sufficient enough to answer the main question. Okay, so most likely it should be around 3. Okay, 4 is too many naman. Now, in terms of statistical treatment, okay, statistical treatment, since your statistical treatment or your hypothesis, sorry for that, your hypothesis has an impact to your crafting of your research problem or statement. So for this one, based on the hypothesis, you can only see that it's correlational research because it said that positive impact, positive influence. So meaning to say they have a correlational relationship or a directional. They're trying to predict the direction of the relationship. Okay. So now that is only proper that they are going to use these variables as using the statistical treatment. Now, for some researchers, correlational research might not be the statistical treatment for them to test the hypothesis or the inferential statistic to use to test the hypothesis. Most likely it should be the test of the difference or the t-test. For the t-test, since that is a t-test, of course, you're comparing sample means of 2 different groups. Example, you're going to compare group or the mean of male versus female in terms of their satisfaction, or you may compare the different age bracket in terms of their satisfaction, or their occupation in terms of their satisfaction, foreign or local tourists in terms of satisfaction. So if that's your statistical inference or statistical treatment of data for your inference, you might want to include problem 1 as your demographic profile. That would be better, because that will be used in your statistics. Now, for this one, they don't include the demographic profile because it's totally unnecessary, because they will not be using that in their statistical treatment. So it's no longer usable for them. So what don't ask that, nor don't include to your SOP. Now, if you're going to use the test of difference, you have to include the respondents or demographic, and then followed by your research variables or research questions. Okay. So yun lang. So that's all. It's very simple. And then, but of course, you have to go back to the previous and understand the context, no? So that's the challenge of the research, how you do it scientifically. So good luck and God bless.